Hi, and thank you so much for joining me. I'm Dr. Robin Sargent, owner of Idol Courses, and I help people become idols. And since the Idol Courses Academy has opened recently, I have been getting some great questions. And the question that I actually want to focus on right now is, will I even like being an instructional designer? Is this the type of job that I could thrive in and be really good at? And so I thought, well, let's share what a day in the life is like as an instructional designer in a corporate environment. And then I'll also share maybe some skills and some questions that you can ask yourself to see if instructional design in a corporate setting is right for you. So typically, um, in a day in the life, first of all, let me go ahead and just say what instructional designer does. And mostly in corporate, they call it workplace learning, and you are a learning consultant. And what that means is that not all performance gap issues that you have in corporate or in business is something that requires training. But as a learning consultant, it is your job to go and determine if the problem and the performance gap is a result of a lack of knowledge or skill. And you can do that through several different ways, types of analysis. There's like 5 different types of analysis, but you'll go and you'll look and see what is going on in the workplace and see what the learners or the users have to say about what is the problem that they are encountering. If it's a culture problem, then training won't fix that, for instance, right? Or if it's that they are missing important tools in their job, like they don't have the correct little screw or the correct actual tool to do something correctly, then training's not going to fix that. They're going to need the tools to do their job. And so it's part of your job as at the beginning is to be an investigator and to determine how can we solve this performance gap in an efficient way. And sometimes that just means job aids. And so it's a lot of critical thinking and problem solving. And then, of course, more of the instructional design part comes in when you determine that there really is a need to help someone's knowledge or their skills. So once you've determined that, then of course it's time to determine what is that design that you're going to make to help solve that problem. And so let's now talk about what it looks like a day in the life. And so a day in the life, depending on exactly what kind of team that you're working on, exactly which kind of business size you're working in, it could be look a little bit different, but it's mostly just like this. So any given day, you could be working on a couple of different projects at the same time, and they could be in different stages in your process on the same day. And so, for instance, you could have one day where you have meetings with stakeholders because they have identified a new performance gap at the organization. And so they are bringing you in because they've already submitted some kind of training request, and you're going to meet with them and find out what's going on, what are the issues that they're having, and what kind of ideas do you have for solutions, and what are your next steps. You could also have meetings with your team to brainstorm and come up with new ideas for a design after you've already determined that training is the answer. And so that could be part of what you do. And then you could currently have another project going on that you've already gone through the process where you've done your kickoff meeting and you've analyzed your learners, and now you're in the design phase. And so you could be writing outlines, meeting with subject matter experts, sending off design documents for review and sign off. And you could also be, working on a development piece for another part of another project. And, whether development is part of your role or not, a lot of times it is part of your role. You have a combo of instructional designer and online learning developer. It just depends. And so you could also be working on actually developing a training module. And so most of that right now is remote learning. And so you could be working on a storyboard, or you could be working on actually putting together your course blueprint in whatever format that looks like. And so that's why a lot of times, I get into theming your week, because there are so many different stages that you could be in different projects in a day in the life of an instructional designer, that sometimes it helps to theme your week. Like, I have subject matter expert interviews on Monday. I do designs for all the courses I'm working on Tuesday. I try to do development on Wednesdays and Thursdays, and on Fridays, it's a catch-up day or something like that. And so you really can have a bunch of different projects going at once, and you could be doing all the different steps of a process all in the same day, just depending on how the projects are stacked, or when they came in, or when they started, or you could be working on development, and then you see, oh, okay, the subject matter expert has gotten me back to me with feedback on my script, and so then it's now in the queue for you to update your design document. And so that gets me to the questions that you might want to ask yourself if you're thinking about moving into a corporate instructional design role. And those questions are things like, do I like to solve problems? Am I good at solving problems? Am I great at thinking critically? Can I look at a situation and come up with some solutions that can, help resolve whatever that problem is? And some of those problems, like I said, they could be that people are just missing information. They could be that people just need a checklist of things to do. Maybe somebody just needs a just-in-time worksheet or just-in-time training that they can have on their mobile device. Maybe it's something about culture, and so for you it would just be to identify that it is a culture thing, or it is to go on site and see how people are doing their work, and you hear straight from the learners that, like, no, I don't need another training on how to do my job. I need these tools. And, you might say, well, why is it that the other people who have brought this problem to you have not been able to identify what that performance gap is themselves? And the thing is that sometimes people see, or managers will see an issue, and if it's not apparent immediately, they think, it must be a training issue. These people don't know how to do their jobs, and so they just submit training requests. And that's why, a needs analysis is so important. And of course, because you are designing a solution for the end user, and so you have to go and find out what's going on in their world. And so the other thing that I would like to ask you is, after that, about critical thinking and problem solving, is, are you really good at communicating? Do you like to communicate, and can you do it well and with clarity? And there are 3 different ways that we communicate as instructional designers and e-learning developers, and that is through oral communication, because a lot of what we do is collaborative, so you'll need to be able to communicate with your team, the stakeholders, and subject matter experts. And then if you're on a team that has people who take on specific roles, such as the video production or the graphic design, or uploading things to the learning management system, whatever that is, you'll need to be able to communicate with that team member. And then, of course, written communication. There are so many times that we are writing design documents, outlines, scripts, scenarios, and all of those things require the ability to write clearly. And then, of course, my favorite, which is visual communication. Can you visually communicate information and demonstrate information for your learners in a way that is appealing and clear for them to understand? And of course, graphic design is kind of married to that, but there are a lot of ways to enhance both your visual communication and your graphic design skills. So the last thing that I would ask you is if you're considering, is instructional design for me? Is do you like to learn? Because my favorite part of being an instructional designer, and I think a lot of people will say this who've been in the field for a while, is that they love to learn. Because not only will you need to learn for your own professional development, but you are crafting learning for others, and you're going to have to learn new things from subject matter experts to be able to then distill that into a way that your learners can grasp it and be able to learn those component skills to solve whole problems. And so just being obsessed with learning, I think, is a key core characteristic of an instructional designer. And so if you like to problem solve, you like to communicate, and you love learning, then instructional design is for you. And of course, if you want to make a transition into corporate instructional design and online learning, or if you've been at this role for a while, but you didn't get the formal training in the process or the tools or the practice of instructional design, you just kind of been doing it for a while accidentally, then I, of course, would like to invite you to the Idle Courses Academy, which is the only implementation program of its kind where you not only build your portfolio, your job application assets, but you get credentials, mentorship, deliberate practice, which means feedback from your peers and experts to implement into all of your projects and any of your projects, and paid experience opportunities. So feel free to ask me any questions in the comments. I read them all and I answer them. You are welcome to message me, and of course you can email me info@idlecourses.com.